The mini PC space continues to evolve and excite, a fact underlined by GIGABYTE's brand new series of BRIX devices. Right here we have a GIGABYTE BRIX and a BRIX S powered by AMD's very latest Zen 2 architecture platform. Let's take a look. So welcome to the very first GIGABYTE AMD series of BRIX devices. Over here we have the GIGABYTE BRIX S, which as you can see is slightly larger, supports a 2.5-inch drives or SSD drives. And we have the ultra compact regular GIGABYTE BRIX. We have a VESA mounting plate, 135-watt power adapter, and 2 options of power cord for different regions. Okay, let's start by taking a look at the GIGABYTE BRIX, which comes in a very small 0.4-liter chassis. This is pretty much as small as computers get. And we'll start with the front I/O. Here you can see there are 3 Type A USB ports. Those are USB 3.2 Gen 1. You also have another pair of those ports, USB 3.2 Gen 1, on the rear of the device. You'll also notice on the front of the device you have a USB Type C port. That's actually USB 3.2 Gen 2. There is another one of those also on the rear. On the front panel, just to conclude, we have our audio jack, which is for both headphones and microphone, plus a power button, which includes an indicator. On the back here, we have a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port, a HDMI port, and a mini display port. But the great thing about the new AMD platform is that the Radeon graphics, which is actually powered by a Vega 8 CPU, can power up to 4 displays using both the HDMI here, the mini display port, and you can also pipe DisplayPort out through both of these USB Type-C ports. That gives you a total of 4 displays at 4K at 60 Hz, which is pretty impressive. Now, both of these devices here, they use the same I/O. The only major difference is on the GIGABYTE S here, you also have a COM port. Now, this is particularly useful for commercial and industrial users where COM ports are surprisingly, despite being a seemingly legacy kind of technology, are still very important for certain devices, including things like scanners. So there you have it. Now, because these BRIX devices are really useful not just for PC enthusiasts, but also for commercial applications and sometimes places where the public will have access, we've added a Kensington lock here, just for situations when theft could be an issue. As with all GIGABYTE BRIX products, they're sold as bare-bone devices, which means that you have to install your own drives, memory, and OS. So to do that, you need to, first of all, remove 4 screws from the undersides of the device, which we have, for the magic of television, we have already done. And here you can see what we've got inside here. Let's start with, you can notice here we have a SATA cable. This is so you can install your drive, and the drive will actually be screwed into the rear of the chassis here. You can also see we have a Wi-Fi Bluetooth 5.1 module. This is Wi-Fi 6, so of course this is the best Wi-Fi connectivity around if you have the right router installed in your location. We also have 2 SO DIMM slots. This supports DDR4 up to speeds of 3200 megahertz, and actually AMD strongly recommends that you do use 3200 megahertz because this will improve performance. Here we also have an M.2 drive slot, which supports PCIe Gen 3 by 4. So as you will recall, the GIGABYTE BRIX S includes 1 2.5 gig Ethernet port and 1 COM port here. But for certain consumer applications and certain customers, they will want more than that. So what we've done is we've designed a special expansion kit, which will give you an additional COM port and an additional gigabit Ethernet port. So you can see the contents of that kit right here. Here we have a daughter board. Here we have an alternate I/O shield, and here we have a coaxial cable. Let's show you how it all fits together. Okay, so we've replaced the I/O shield. We've also put the 4 screws back in the base of the device. So now, as you can see, we have a 2.5 gig Ethernet port, a gigabit Ethernet port, and also a COM port using an RJ45 connector. Now this configuration is useful for customers who want 2 network ports for either redundancy or perhaps for daisy chaining. But it's also good to remember that if they don't want this, if they prefer to have expanded storage, they can also choose not to have this configuration and use it and install a 2.5-inch drive on the device. Thank you for joining us for this unboxing video. Please go to our channel where you can enjoy a subsequent video where we explore the benefits of AMD's high-performance Ryzen 4000 series platform. As you've probably seen with our previous video, GIGABYTE is launching a series of devices using AMD's mobile platform. This is the Ryzen series based on the new Zen 2 architecture. And this is a real game changer in many respects because previously AMD's mobile platforms weren't that strong, not in terms of performance and certainly not in terms of thermals. So what we have here today is a compact device this small using it actually provides 8 cores and 16 threads. Now in the past, if you wanted 8 cores and 16 threads, you needed something like this. A traditional PC, the full-on PC with all the cooling and lots of fans and everything else. But because of AMD's new process, I would say TSM 7nm process, AMD is now capable of putting many more cores into a small die that uses a thermal envelope, in this case, of just under or around no more than 25 watts, which is absolutely incredible. The CPU used in both of these is the Ryzen 7 4800U, which has a base clock of 1.8 and a turbo up to 4.2 GHz in certain circumstances. Also here, you've got a very strong IGP. You have the new Vega 8 GPU, which is part of the AMD Radeon series. This has 8 execution units and a core clock speed of 1750 MHz, which is pretty impressive. But we're going to take a look at the performance metrics here and see just how they compete to previous platforms. So join us on that journey now. So for the purpose of comparison, we're going to compare AMD's new Zen 2 platform with Intel's 10th generation core platform, which uses 6 cores and 12 threads based on the Comet Lake platform. Note that in testing the same storage and system memory configurations were used. Let's see how they compare. Cinebench R20 is considered by many to be one of the most reliable CPU benchmarks. In our testing, you can see that the AMD R7 4800U really takes advantage of the additional cores to outscore the Intel platform by more than 30%. An impressive display considering the new AMD platform's 25-watt envelope. Geekbench is another popular CPU test offering both single-core and multi-core performance metrics. In the single-core race, the Intel platform pulls ahead by around 6%, a reminder that Intel is pretty hard to beat in a single-threaded performance. However, when utilizing all available cores and threads, AMD storms ahead by a margin of almost 13%. The PCMark 10 benchmark measures all aspects of your system, including CPU, memory, GPU, and your drives. The new AMD platform takes a substantial win here by a margin of 28.6%. In terms of graphics performance, we start with 3DMark TimeSpy, a grueling test usually reserved for desktop PCs and discrete GPUs. Here we see the Vega architecture and the Radeon GPU pull ahead by a margin of 78.5%. An indication that despite being an integrated GPU solution, basic gaming at HD resolution should be decent on most titles. 3DMark SkyDriver is less demanding and aimed at mobile CPU and GPU platforms. Once again, however, the new BRIX has a massive advantage, pulling ahead by a solid 67%. If we compare read and write speeds, it's interesting to note that despite being pretty close, the Intel NUC produces a marginal performance level in the sequential reading test of 1.3% and a lead of 2.9% in the sequential write test. However, when we compare 4K read and write speeds, we find a substantial lead of 43.4% for AMD in the write test and an incredible 101 gain in the read test. So as you can see from those benchmark results, the performance of AMD's new platform is pretty phenomenal. And we're very happy to see 8 cores and 16 threads on a device this small. It also has great graphics and compatibility for 4x 4K displays at 60 Hz, which is also fantastic to see. This is good news for enthusiasts and gamers, casual gamers, I guess, but it's also great news for our industrial and commercial partners. And don't forget about flexibility with the upgrade kit that we're offering here on the GIGABYTE BRIX S. Okay, so this will be available in the market. Both of these devices will be available during the holiday season at the end of this year. Thank you for joining us.